Thank you all for joining us for SICSS-Howard Mathematica's opening plenary with Dr. Anthony Wuta, Provost of Howard University, and Dr. Amy Yeboah-Kwarkame, Associate Professor of Africana Studies in the Department of Afro-American Studies at Howard University. This program will be a fireside chat between our speakers. I will also moderate. It is my pleasure to introduce Calvin Hadley, Senior Advisor for Strategic Initiatives, who will officially open our event and introduce Provost Wuta and Dr. Yeboah-Kwarkame. Calvin J. Hadley serves as the Senior Advisor for Strategic Initiatives in the Office of the President at Howard University. Hadley works to broker strategic partnerships that advance the university's mission, truth and service. Since joining Howard in 2014, he's negotiated numerous partnerships along several student programs. The most notable of these include Howard's partnership with Google and Amazon Studios to create the Howard West Campus in Silicon Valley and the Howard Entertainment Campus in Hollywood, a partnership with the District of Columbia Public Schools, which led to the creation of a dual enrollment program that allows high school juniors and seniors to earn college credit at Howard University, and a lecture series with Congressman Elijah Cummings, former Director of the FBI James Comey, former Mayor of Washington, D.C. Vincent Gray, and others. It is my pleasure to introduce my colleague and friend, Calvin Hadley.
Thank you very much, Nanette. And I don't think we get a chance to do this very frequently, so I do want to spend a few seconds thanking Nanette for all of her hard work to set this up. She will be your fearless Sherpa on this journey, and so thank you for all your hard work behind the scenes, and welcome. Welcome to the SICSS 2022 cohort. My name is Calvin Hadley, as Nanette said, and I have the pleasure of being one of the architects of SICSS-Howard Mathematica. We started this journey several years ago. Quarantine and COVID-19 have impacted us in a significant way, but we're really excited to kick this off with you today, and really excited to hopefully engage you in what will be a life-changing experience. I will take a moment to introduce Provost Anthony Wuta and Professor Amy Kwarkame in a moment, and you guys have their big, phenomenal bios, and so I will dive a little bit more into the personal and how they connect to this space. But before doing so, you guys will notice that we're here on Juneteenth. And so I had to engage our president. Our president frequently does these introductory plenary sessions as well about this event. And he said, you know, Anthony Wuta, Provost Wuta is your man. He's the guy, he's perfect for this topic. And so I went to immediately engage Provost Wuta, and I said, Provost, you know, this event is either on Father's Day / Juneteenth, or we can potentially have this on the day that we'll celebrate Juneteenth, but I'd like to give you that day off if possible. And so willing to be flexible. And his response, I think, is appropriate to really kick this event off and show some of the importance of why Howard University is really proud to co-sponsor this event, and why it's really serendipitous that this opening plenary falls on this date at this time. His response was, Calvin, I think that this is the perfect day and the perfect time to have this event. And so, yes, I will give up my time. As you see, that is his office. I will give up my time, and there's no other place that I'd rather be than kicking this off. And I think that response, our place in this event, is something that I feel very proud of. Juneteenth, I think, is a day to recognize freedom, to recognize empowerment, to recognize fighting against systematic oppression. I think as we think about tomorrow's war, we know that data science will be at the forefront of that. And so it is really important for us to recognize Juneteenth as we celebrate this and open up this very important conversation with our Provost and Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Anthony Wuta, and I should say our phenomenal colleague, Professor Amy Kwarkame. And I think I would love to say momentarily, Professor Kwarkame several years ago reached out with a great deal of exuberance in this space that I think she was being introduced to in a very unique way as a result of COVID-19 and the Mellon New Direction Fellowship. And she, I think her timing, the timing of the SICSS program, Nanette's timing, even before any of us came on board, for there to be a significant push for there to be a HBCU to host one of these, I think all comes together at perfect timing for us to open up this session for you guys today. I also want to give a shout out to my colleague, and friend Akira Bell, who is our partner on the Mathematica side. And so with that, today I'm really excited to bring to you guys two of our best at Howard University, Provost and Chief Academic Officer Anthony Wuta, Dr. Anthony Wuta, and Associate Professor Amy Quirkame. Thank you guys. Thank you guys, 16. Welcome to Howard. Have a phenomenal session, and I look forward to bringing you guys greetings later throughout the week. Take it away, colleagues.
Good afternoon, and thank you for that introduction, Calvin. It certainly is my honor and my pleasure to be able to join this afternoon as well. And so before we get started, I wanted to first again wish everyone a happy Juneteenth, and for the fathers in the audience, happy Father's Day as well. My wife and I have two daughters. My oldest is a rising senior here at Howard, and my youngest is a 10th grader, will be a rising junior in high school. So certainly enjoyed spending time with them over the weekend, and I want to make sure that we acknowledge our fathers as well. We usually spend all of our time honoring and recognizing Mother's Day, and getting flowers and gifts and taking them out to lunch. And so I want to make sure that I acknowledge our fathers as well. And I want to thank Dr. Quirkame for joining us this afternoon. I'm looking forward to talking a bit about her background and the opportunities that we're going to be continuing to pursue. But welcome. It certainly is our honor and our pleasure to participate in this Summer Institute on Computational Social Sciences, and want to certainly thank Mathematica for their support, and also acknowledge a number of individuals that we want to highlight as well at Howard: Professor Terry Adams, Professor Nicole Jenkins. Certainly you've met Calvin Hadley, but we also want to acknowledge Mathematica and their CEO, Paul Decker, and their Senior Vice President and Chief Information Officer, Akira Bell, and also in conjunction with SICSS, Matt Salganik and Chris Bale and Nanette. Want to certainly thank you for all that you are doing for this to be a successful event as well. I think it's important to give you a little bit of background or context about Howard University. If you're not familiar with Howard, or you know a little bit about Howard, a couple of things that I think are important to highlight. And since this is serendipitously also Juneteenth, Howard was founded in 1867, really 2 years after the end of the Civil War. And we were founded as an institution to help provide educational opportunities to the children of newly freed enslaved individuals who had, prior to that period, never had the opportunity for an educational experience. But one of the things many people don't know is that among the first students enrolled at Howard included not only the Black children of the newly freed slaves, but also many of the white children of the founders of the university. So from the inception, Howard has always been a diverse institution, providing educational experiences for Black and white. Many of those earlier students were also females. So again, from our inception, Howard has provided educational experiences for women. If you look back in the history of the university and the history of many firsts that women have experienced, you'll frequently find a Howard alum, whether it's in the field of law or in the field of medicine, or women having opportunities to practice in places and in fields where they previously had not been allowed to. Howard is frequently a part of that experience and a part of providing them that opportunity to really create a future for themselves where other institutions would not provide that opportunity. So I'm going to ask Dr. Quirkame to make a few comments, and then we'll sort of delve into a question and answer. Period. Dr. Quirkame is an associate professor in our Department of Afro-American Studies. And so what brings you into an area, framed around statistics and computation and data science and analytics? If you can tell us a little bit about your background and why this is an area of interest to you.
Thank you, Provost Wuto. And welcome everyone again. Happy Juneteenth, happy Father's Day. Great question, because I am coming from Africana Studies. Africana Studies within its own discipline and field isn't statistics, isn't sociology, isn't computational, right? But when I was given the opportunity to learn a new skill, the university had an opportunity to train faculty in a new skill. And at the time, during COVID, I was reading a lot about some of the issues around COVID, AI, reporting, testing centers, just a lot of issues around bias and how people who needed the most resources were kind of left out of receiving these resources because the data wasn't there, or the algorithm told them that they didn't need it, or they didn't qualify for it. So coming from Africana Studies discipline that looks at African people, place, and culture, I was thinking about how can data science do this to us? We've seen a bit in, let's say, business with credit cards and for credit scores. We've seen a little bit in healthcare, but now like COVID is a pressing issue. How is this hurting us? And how can I join in that effort to kind of address what is kind of a now issue? So with that, I have some stats background. I use some of my stats background to kind of dive into data science and kind of learn how do these algorithms create these unfortunate situations, not just for African Americans, but also for Native Americans. Many Native American communities were also left out of some of the data science around COVID that impacted their experiences. So I'm not from a computational data science background, but I delve in because we needed to. Thinking about Juneteenth and the ability to live a free life. If we have a new hurdle with data science, how many of us need to kind of jump in to be able to allow this hurdle not to hold us back? So it's been an exciting journey. Going back to learn data science, learning Python, R, all these things are kind of, it's new. Getting homework is new, but that's kind of where I am at Howard right now, and also the data science in the field. So kind of a baby, growing baby in the field.
Okay. Thank you. Nanette, I know you had some questions that you wanted to frame to us.
Yes, thank you so much, Provost Wuta. I am so appreciative of the opportunity to share space with both of you. Howard has been a phenomenal host and leader in this space alongside Mathematica, and on Juneteenth, we all have the day off, and we're here, and I deeply appreciate you giving your time. So I heard recently that there's a new center that is being seeded and grown at Howard, and I'd love to hear more from the both of you about this center, what it will do, and how it will change the world as we know it.
Sure, maybe I'll start. We decided to create a center for applied data science and data analytics for a number of reasons, but we saw data science as a huge growing area, but we also understood that the application of data science really impacted and could affect every discipline at the university, and we typically tend to think of it from the technical aspects, from computer science or computer engineering or statistics. But because we have a strong faculty also in the humanities and in the social sciences, one of the things that we've really been promoting is interdisciplinary partnership, interdisciplinary collaboration. And we thought it would be a unique opportunity for our faculty to think about how could we use data science to help address some of the significant problems in our society. How could we use data science to address healthcare reform and to address some of the challenges we see with healthcare, challenges in communities of color. How could we use data science, for example, as we think about criminal justice reform, and can that area be strengthened in our sociology and criminology program, in our Africana studies program, with our social work program? How could we use data science to help our economists think about economic reform and ways that we could address disparities in economic areas among, again, African Americans and people of color? So we wanted to look at this as a way of creating opportunities for more of our faculty to collaborate across disciplines and not just look at data science as a technical field that has nothing to do with arts or the humanities, but how we can use the collective skills of our faculty to address problems across disciplines. Because most problems are not, if there were simple solutions, we would have fixed them long ago. But because many of these problems cross disciplinary boundaries, we just saw this as a natural opportunity for us to create a center where, regardless of whether a faculty member may be in our College of Engineering and Architecture, where computer science is seated, or if they're in information systems, which is in the School of Business, or they have an interest in healthcare disparities and they're in the College of Medicine or College of Pharmacy, we felt like a center of this sort would create some interdisciplinary opportunity for faculty to be able to reach across their departments and reach across schools and colleges and really help us think about these broader societal issues and how we would be able to really provide significant ways for us to address these challenges. And I'll ask Dr. Kwarkume if, particularly since she's an example of a faculty member who's crossing those disciplinary boundaries, her thoughts about this center.
Yeah, I'm coming in on the tail end of the vision, but it's a very powerful and dynamic vision, right? That you would allow other disciplines to lean in helping find solutions to issues that are tied to data science. So again, having the opportunity to kind of lean in into a vision that Howard is growing is just phenomenal. Knowing that, yes, algorithms exist, let's say, in our computers and our phones, but dealing with the issues that algorithms create outside of computers, outside of technology. How does it, create issues around food security? How does it create issues around people getting diverse test results, right? So having other disciplines kind of having a space to lean in all the programs I've seen and what's being envisioned and put together at Howard is very different and is very impactful. And to also add to that, there is a social justice lens that we actually to apply the tool to kind of create this change, right? So there are definitely tools and courses that are there to help you gain the language, the coding, right? But at the end of the day, we want you to apply it. We want you to think about a way in which whatever has happened within the field, which is again going in its own direction, pull it down to the social work level, pull it down to the education level, pull it down to the business level. How can we create new forms of currency that doesn't allow people who look like us to be discriminated against, right? How do we create new pathways of learning that doesn't leave children who may not score high to not go to college? So the center itself centers social justice with the sense of providing tools, but really empowers a new type of data scientist that we, I would say, is somewhat disruptive, right? It's not the traditional data scientist that is just, let's say, you will at some point, if you decide to go into the industry, right? But you compared to an industry data scientist, if you see something wrong, you will know and have the tools to speak up or know and have the tools to kind of address it, right? That's what's kind of what we're creating across all disciplines with the center, right? And then also with the sense of licensure with the soon forthcoming program as well.
And the name of the center is the Center for Applied Data Science and Analytics, or CADSA for short. And we've been able to acquire significant funding from MasterCard to help us in really the first two initiatives. And so one of the first things that we're doing is we're conducting a cluster hire process. We already have a number of faculty engaged in data science and analytics spread throughout campus. So we wanted to also recruit some additional faculty, and we just conducted a process inviting all of our schools to apply. And so we're in the process now of hiring 6 to 7 additional data scientists to help us in this endeavor. The other thing that we're going to be doing, our Board of Trustees just approved a master's degree. And so we'll be starting a master's degree program in applied data science and analytics. The faculty that we're recruiting will help in terms of teaching those courses that will be taught, as well as faculty who are already here at the university who will also provide support for that program.
So I'm going to jump in and ask a question. So it seems like there are data science programs just cropping up all over the place. What's the Howard difference here? So as opposed to another colleague institution like Georgetown that's also in DC, what is going to be the Howard difference with this program and with this degree?
Sure, I think Dr. Kwakume had alluded to the fact we like to say that social justice is a part of the DNA of Howard University and is really embedded into the fabric of everything that we do, whether a student is in the College of Medicine or they're in engineering and architecture, or they're a pharmacy student. There's really an element of social justice that is reinforced in their educational experience. So what we want to do with our Center for Applied Data Science and Analytics is, as the name implies, we really want to focus on the application of data science. Certainly students are going to, within our master's degree program, are going to get the underlying foundation, the technical foundation of data science. But we really want them to be exposed to what is taking place in the humanities, what is taking place in the social sciences, how to think about the application of data science in these larger societal issues, so that it is an element of what they learn in the program, as opposed to really focusing on the technical aspects of data science. So there's a significant part of the program that is focused around application and focused around collaboration across disciplines in the humanities, in the fine arts, in the social sciences, in health care. We have a full academic health center with a College of Medicine, College of Pharmacy, College of Dentistry, College of Nursing and Allied Health, as well as our School of Social Work. And so there are faculty already in those schools who are doing significant work in terms of healthcare disparities, and having additional resources and additional expertise in data science, really for the purpose of helping us address those significant issues.
Yeah, I definitely also want to add, going back to what makes Howard so unique, Howard definitely is an institution that has all these different colleges: dentistry, medicine. There is a school of, the School of Divinity, right? So we have all these different colleges and universities, and they definitely have their own discipline and ways in which they're looking at the world. But to have them kind of add data science to what they're thinking about makes, your experience very unique. So you can take a school class course in divinity, maybe just on, let's say New Testament texts, but you can think about New Testament texts in the current Black church, and how even the Black church has to deal with data science. Like, how do we look at numbers, and how do we find ways to kind of get people back to the church with technology? So, Howard being a diverse space, one, not just locally, not just by discipline, but also internationally, it sets our program apart with what type of questions students can ask, having so many different electives at their fingertips to apply data science to. And then two, when it comes to, translating a computational language to a community that may not be nuanced to it, right? So when it comes to data, Black communities, African communities, immigrant communities, we're kind of left out. We are the missing data, right? So what happens when you empower the missing data to define themselves, right? When we're able to create our own data sets, we're able to kind of collect our own data, we're able to decide how we choose to be coded, whether it's an algorithm or it's in a VR, AR, avatar type world. When you empower that community that hasn't been considered or asked, how do you want to be coded? It creates a whole dynamic of empowerment that, you know, it shifts policy, it shifts people who are involved in activism to be able to enter a meeting where maybe you have a room full of Google scholars who are talking about these tools, and now you have the tools yourself because Howard has empowered you to think about yourself differently, talk about things differently, and apply it your own way. And it also creates the space for, you know, Python, R, let's say GIS. These are tools that are outside of our creation, right? These, let's say, many of these tools were created by white males. We also want to create a space where students can think about their own tools. How do we create our own tools that kind of define who we are? And we can also, not say market, but train and use to allow other communities outside of the US to kind of also create their own tools. So again, it's kind of doing data science, but asking different questions, approaching and applying, allowing space to apply what you learn to whatever space, whatever sense of self you have, but also knowing that at the end of the day, there is a licensure that comes with that. You know, Howard is an accredited institution. We will give you the sense of degree that is also acceptable in the industry. So you shouldn't feel as if I cannot speak in the same room as someone who went to a Georgetown or someone who went to, let's say, another institution. Like the Howard degree will equip you with those tools that are kind of in the field.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kwarkame. I'm going to ask two more questions. One I will address to both of our speakers, and then the last I will address to Dr. Wuta. I want to give you a heads up on the last one, Dr. Wuta. So we always ask our faculty advisors to tell us about their path to the professoriate and what drew them to academia. So we'll finish there, but I want to ask you this question. I'm hoping you'll both address it. And to our audience members, start thinking about those questions and get your hands up. What is the significance of having our Summer Institute in Computational Social Science at Howard University last summer and this summer, and how does it fit in to Howard's larger mission and values?
So Dr. Kwarkame, I'll let you start and then I'll chime in.
I think this program in the summer kind of allows, you know, because there are institutions that have, let's say, data science programs for like more than 50 years. Like they've had long-standing data science programs. But I think us having this at Howard, even though we're just coming with the center, coming with the master's program, it just allows us to also establish ourselves that we have been doing data science. So if you think about Du Bois and what Du Bois did when he went to Harvard, like he was doing sociology, right? He was doing Africana studies. It wasn't called that, but he was doing it. It took a while for, let's say, the institutions to kind of recognize, right? But at Howard, we've been doing data science. We have been thinking about how do we see ourselves within the sense of numbers and accounting and just data, but now we're establishing it. So still coming to Howard, you know, we're trying to kind of let people know we're here. You know, we have a lens, we have a framework, we have a core sense of knowledge production we want to bring to the discipline that we hope you all will kind of, you know, be some of our, you know, flag bearers. If you want to apply for the cluster hire, you know, you're welcome to apply. We're building an institution, a foundation that is contributing knowledge to the field of data science. We're looking for researchers, we're looking for scholars, we're looking for anyone who wants to kind of help build and continue to start conversations such as this that are different at other SICSS sites because we are Howard, because what we do at Howard is social justice driven. Provost Wuta?
Sure, and I'll just add in, and I'm reflecting on my experience as a graduate student. I did my PhD in pharmacoepidemiology and pharmacy administration with an emphasis on pharmacoepidemiology. And I remember my classmates were terrified of statistics. And they were terrified and didn't know how to, we had to learn SPSS, we had to learn SAS, and my dissertation in particular was very heavily into secondary data analysis and using and analyzing large data sets. So I just see this as such an important area for our students to be able to learn and to be able to use these tools to answer questions that they otherwise, would have to get assistance or would have to, work with someone with expertise in the area. So I just, thought this was such a great opportunity to partner and for us to, have our faculty and our students who are experts in a number of fields and sort of use that opportunity to strengthen our expertise in computational sciences and data science and analytics, and to think about ways that we've been answering questions differently. But this would just provide yet another tool in the toolkit to be able to answer questions in ways that we may not have thought about previously, or ways that we may not have been able to do without some additional support and assistance. So demystifying statistics, particularly for our graduate students, and demystifying, computational sciences, I think is very significant. One, in having more students consider it as an option for their careers, or even if their careers would be in other areas, knowing that this is something that they would be able to rely on or would be able to utilize when they have questions or have areas that they would like to contribute to the knowledge in a particular discipline, or would just simply like to answer a question or to help another student who may be struggling. I think for us is a great opportunity.
Dr. Kwarkame, I think, said it very well, that this is disruptive leadership. And I thank you both for your dedication to this and to Howard's dedication to this. So my final question before we open it up, and I'm starting to see hands, which is fantastic. We'd like you to reflect a little bit more, Dr. Kwarkame, on, Dr. Wuto, on your path to the professoriate. What made you want to become an academic? How did you get here? And I would also ask a question that came up in our panel the other day, which is, with all the challenges to being Black in the academy right now, what makes you stay?
Great questions. Maybe just a little bit about my background. My family's originally from Ghana, and we moved here when I was young. And when we moved to this country, my father took on a professorship at a small HBCU called the University of Maryland Eastern Shore. And so he taught genetics and biology, and had graduate students and was conducting really fantastic research there. When I went away to college, I was a biochemistry major, and then went on to pharmacy school, and in large part because my sister went to pharmacy school, and she told me it would be a great career opportunity for me. So I went to pharmacy school at the University of Maryland, followed my sister. And as I was nearing graduation and thinking about what I wanted to do, I really wanted to have more options in terms of my career. And I knew that there were a lot of changes happening in pharmacy as a profession. And I was fortunate that one of my faculty members I had done some research with asked me to think about joining the PhD program. And so I was sort of a provisional student the first year. I took a couple of courses. I did well. And then I went full-time into our PhD program. I did my dissertation. I'm an HIV researcher. And so My dissertation I did with the Maryland AIDS Administration around a particular opportunistic infection called CMV retinitis. And it was funded by a pharmaceutical company. And so my plans when I finished my PhD were to work in the pharmaceutical industry. And then I heard that there was a faculty position available at Howard in the College of Pharmacy. And, you know, we had always held Howard in high regard. My father had collaborated with faculty colleagues at Howard. So my goal really was to work at Howard for 5 years and then go into the pharmaceutical industry. And that was 26 years ago. So I've been at Howard for 26 years. I came as an assistant professor, really HIV researcher. I was asked to consider administration. I was the associate dean in the College of Pharmacy for a year or two. And then the pharmacy school became an independent college again. And so I was the interim dean of the College of Pharmacy, served as the dean for 4 years before I was asked to consider serving in this role as the provost. So I've been provost for the last 7 years as well. But my goal was really to be in academia for 5 years and then move into the pharmaceutical industry. But I had such a great experience working with this really talented, you know, brilliant faculty from social work and from medicine and from Africana studies that I really learned a lot from them. And you know, I guess to answer your second question, why did I stay in academia? It was really the opportunity to work with brilliant people and think about broader questions that we could answer together. We've had a lot of really talented students, again, brilliant students, and you know, just seeing them learn and grow and watching the light bulb come on, and as they, you know, develop questions that, you know, I either never thought about or, gee, I didn't think about approaching it that way. And, you know, I think for me, it's been really rewarding. And I've had the opportunity to consider, you know, going into different industries, you know, whether it's the pharmaceutical industry or in associations or other academic institutions. And I just feel that the reward that I have had and the experiences that I have had would have been different or maybe would not have been as rewarding, you know, in another environment. And so that's my story.
Thank you so much
he makes it look so cool too. He makes it look so cool.
He really does. Like hashtag coolest provost ever.
Literally.
And I love that. I also love the story that your sister sent you to graduate school. I love that. Like the provost's sister said, you need to go into this field. So I want to let everyone know we're not asking the same question of Dr. Kwarkame because there's a whole video about her. So if you haven't watched it yet, I ask her questions about her path to the professoriate and a whole bunch of other things. So take a look at our videos on our site and learn about her. She is an exceptional scholar, a leader, and we are so blessed and appreciative that she is part of our community. So we're going to jump into live Q&A. So our first question comes from Renee. We've got Renee, Rebecca, Regina, then Todd in the order. So Renee, turn your camera on and we will get your question.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. Happy Juneteenth and happy Father's Day. Just wanted to honor that first. So my question is related to the new data science building that you all had spoke about. Love the focus on the multidisciplinary approach, and wanted to ask, you know, what are some intentional approaches that will be taken to have that multidisciplinary approach with different schools? Like, for example, in the UC system, I attend UC Berkeley, we have like big ideas, and so students are able to come together and like create a project, and you know, if there's some sort of project that they're interested in, so Anyway, my question is pretty much, what are some intentional approaches to be able to collaborate and connect across disciplines in data science at Howard?
Great question. So maybe I'll talk about our the approach we took for our cluster hire process. We had incentivized our deans and told them, look, we're going to give you the opportunity to get free faculty. The faculty that are going to be recruited as part of the cluster hire process are going to be funded out of the office of the provost. And so it costs the college nothing in terms of their budget, but there was a catch. And the catch was it had to be a collaboration between at least 2 schools. So 2 schools had to collaborate in submitting a proposal. The winning proposals, for example, were one proposal was from our College of Medicine in collaboration with the College of Pharmacy. Another one was our College of Arts and Sciences in collaboration with the College of Medicine. And the third one was the graduate school collaborating with the College of Arts and Sciences. And so the ideas that they were proposing were really interdisciplinary, creative ideas. The other thing that we've done, we created a faculty really advisory committee, and that committee is composed of faculty with data science expertise from around the university. And so they're from Arts and Sciences, the School of Business, the College of Medicine, the College of Pharmacy, the Graduate School. And they've worked together to propose the curriculum for the master's degree. So it's really taking advantage of thinking across disciplines. And we made sure they had a non-data scientist faculty member with a background in social sciences to really, propose, well, why don't we do it this way? Or why are you, requiring that? Or how are we making sure we get additional thinking outside of the traditional technical data sciences perspective? But I'd also love to hear your ideas. If your institution is doing something creative or something that we can learn from to, one, promote interdisciplinarity and promote creativity, we would love to hear about it and still can incorporate that into the center going forward. The other thing that we've done is the faculty that are being hired through the cluster hire process, they're going to be seated in one of our 14 existing schools or colleges, but they will have a joint appointment in the center. And so the center itself is going to get at least 40% of their committed time and effort. And that's going to allow us to have those faculty work in a collaborative, interdisciplinary way and thinking about ways that we can promote data science and analytics in an interdisciplinary environment, sort of separate from what might be taking place in an individual school or college. And also, hopefully, we'll use that as a way of strengthening additional collaboration across the schools as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think Howard is doing a top-down approach versus some programs say, oh, come with your diverse ideas and you can take these discipline-specific courses and maybe your idea can kind of blossom. But at Howard, we have diverse faculty that come with the interdisciplinary experience. And then you as a student, you bring that to that space. And then it's kind of even more mixed, let's say mixed method or mixed discipline. And also within the course offering, there's space for electives that you can literally take a foundational data science and apply analytics course, but your electives can be in the School of Divinity, right? If they're offering some type of content base, or be in medicine, right? So that kind of gives you options to be able to kind of really marry different disciplines with a unique question that you have, right? So we're gonna top-down approach. The course offerings are interdisciplinary, and then the cohort itself, we hope to kind of let in students who come from different backgrounds to create different learning experiences, right? That kind of bleeds throughout the entire curriculum.
Thank you, both of you. I dropped in the chat box with that divinity connection. We have God and data. So Howard keeps God and data.
I bring that up because I think NVIDIA is kind of a big AI company. They were giving funding for people to think about God and data together. And I was like, I never thought about that. But there are companies that are kind of looking to lean into religion and data science that, you know, at Howard, we do have a whole college based on that we could kind of spend time thinking about that can be funded.
I'm going to open it up next for Rebecca. So I'm trying to squeeze her in because we have a wonderful working mother here who has a crying 16-month-old. So she's going to try to quietly ask her question before the baby starts crying. Go ahead.
Hi, I want to say hi to Dr. Wutong and Dr. Kwakame. I'm also a fellow faculty member at Howard University at Econ Department. Yeah, so at first I just want to echo back on all of you mentioned that how Black community are left out in data science and in economic studies. We also often left out the economic impact of African American. And the study of economics of race is totally underinvested and then underappreciated. So I have a question specifically for Dr. Kwakame. Is that I noticed that you recently got a degree from Harvard University, a graduate degree in data science. So I want to ask, like, what is the most important element that push you into getting another degree after you already has a PhD degree? And then how does that impact your career path in terms of research, service, or teaching or anything?
Thank you for that question. Provost Muto can kind of agree to this. I am the faculty member that always did something new. Like whatever came across email, oh, we have an initiative, I'm always interested in learning new things, not only because I'm invested in my personal growth as a scholar, but also know that if I'm able to learn new things, my students will learn new things, right? And students are drawn to research that are asking new questions or interrogating things in a new way. So my PhD is in African Studies, but I've never shied away from learning new things to be able to enrich my teaching experience for my students, but also my personal growth. So the Harvard Extension School data science degree, I did that because I also wanted to see, you know, we knowing that when it comes to AI and data science, many of those who created these systems come out of this institution, right? So I want to interrogate, what are they learning about computer science, data science, that I want to be able to be exposed to be able to say, okay, I want to kind of give this to my students and have them understand how do we get to this point where algorithms are biased, right? So kind of going to the manual that created this system to understand how can we kind of go back and fix it. So again, with the Mellon grant that was offered, I had a chance, I'm still in the program, still finishing it. And kind of struggling with understanding how do we get to this space. Those who created, whether Facebook, Amazon, like they all came to this space of, you know, it's Howard, like who taught them this thing? Where did they get it from? How did they decide? How did it come to a conclusion where it was okay to leave us out and not consider us as data points in this growing data system? But I think I'm unique in that way that I just always want to grow. I don't shy away from challenging myself. And I do think this program will allow other faculty to kind of step in and take a course or two courses to learn a new skill. So you're in environmental justice, but you haven't learned GIS. We have GIS course that can teach you how to do data science and GIS and add that to your course curriculum, but you may not get the whole degree, but now how would we offer it, right? So it's just a mix between my personal philosophy and knowing that to have our students be the students we want to see a different world, I need to train them to be able to kind of craft those skills. And if I don't have the skills, they don't have the skills, and then the society is short. But thank you for that question. I look forward to seeing you on campus soon. Hopefully in the data science program, because we need your courses to add to the program elected.
It's a great question. Thank you so much, Rebecca. We're going to have our final questions asked by our alumni teaching fellows. So these are two folks that graduated from SICSS-Howard Mathematica last year with Professor Nicole Jenkins. So let's spotlight Regina and Todd, and they'll each ask a question.
Thank you both for being here. My question is directed towards Provost Uto. Seeing as you've been very successful in the grant application process, like acquiring over $50 million, I was wondering if you have any advice on acquiring grants and getting potential grant sources to kind of like care about and see the importance of the research that you're doing.
Yeah, I think that there are a couple of things that I would point to and mention. One is you have to be persistent. I remember the first grant applications I submitted to NIH and the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality weren't funded, but I was encouraged to, speak to the reviewers' comments and resubmit, and I did that. I tell folks that I've probably had more grants rejected than funded. So the academic process and the grant review process, it can be a depressing one because the peer review process is intended to identify the best of the best applications. But that oftentimes means that you'll be challenged and you'll need to resubmit, and you'll need to think about maybe think about the research methodology or the statistical analysis portion, or strengthening your background section so that it makes it as competitive as possible. The other thing I'll say is that it helped me a lot to be interdisciplinary at the onset. And so I've had grants funded with colleagues from the College of Medicine, the College of Nursing and Allied Health, and that may seem like a natural fit because I'm a pharmacist, but I've also had projects supported with faculty from social work. I've worked with colleagues across, I worked on one grant application with colleagues I met in graduate school. One was at the University of Texas, one was at University of Michigan, another one was at the University of Georgia, and the fourth one was at the University of Florida. And so, we decided that we would work collaboratively in an interdisciplinary way. And again, initially that project wasn't funded. And so we had to be, persistent and address the reviewers' comments and resubmit. So those two things I would say have been really important. One is to be persistent, and secondly, to work, not to be afraid to work across disciplines. You may have really bright ideas in your field, but having a collaborator from a different field who may approach things from a different perspective really can strengthen the application and help you to eventually get a funded proposal. I hope that was helpful.
And we'll give our last question to Todd, who very kindly offered to take a step back to respect folks' time, but I told him we want to make sure he gets his question. So please go ahead, Todd.
Thank you, and thank you both, Dr. Kwakame and Dr. Wuta. My question is, in thinking about a lot of this work, we are uncovering disparities and different places where we've been left out. And I'm wondering, how do you keep and center that vision that you described earlier, and sort of what gives you hope to keep pushing forward?
For me, one of the things that gives me hope are my students. That, as I was mentioning before, we all have to be honest, I was listening to a show earlier on as I was driving in, and they were talking about bias and how do we address societal bias. And this particular speaker said, we all have biases. It's not a circumstance where there are these biased people over there and they should be more like us because we're unbiased. We also have our own biases, but we provide perspectives in a way that other individuals may not. So I think one of the things that is important to me is things are the way that they are because there's a certain process, there's a certain mechanism, there's a certain system that has developed over time. I don't necessarily think it was always intentional that we will leave other people out. But if you don't have diverse voices, if you don't have women involved in the way processes are developed, if you had a room full of men and we were asked, for example, to develop a female product, it probably wouldn't turn out very well. Not because I don't like women, and not because I don't, value women, but I don't see things from the perspective that a woman does that would provide valuable insights as we address that process. But I think it's similar with data science. If you don't have a diverse group of folks who are thinking about things in the ways that it affects and impacts them personally, or affects and impacts their particular population or their minority group, it doesn't have to be intentional bias, but it will end up still being biased because you haven't had the perspective of folks who are being impacted by the decisions that you're making. So I think it is critically important that we develop data scientists of color so that they will be in the room as decisions are being made. They will be in the room as we're thinking about how do we address this issue? How do we analyze this process? How do we create this solution to a broader issue? Because if you don't have a diversity of thoughts and opinions in that decision-making process, it's going to end up biased because we're all biased. You just may have a room of people who have the same bias, and so it's going to lean in one direction at the end, as opposed to having 20 people with 20 different biases who will think about things from their own unique perspectives and say, well, I want to incorporate the way I think in my group and my population as we try to develop this solution. So we get the richest and broadest context as we're developing and thinking about these solutions to problems that are not easy problems to fix.
Yeah, I agree. And to add to that, the hope isn't just in having the room, right? Because institutions exist everywhere, but the hope is in having the room, having diverse bodies in the room, right, or minds in the room, but also having all those individuals feel like their contributions are valuable, right? So you can be the only person in the room who's, let's say, from a certain background. You're in the room, but the question is, are people listening to your sense of what you think, how something should be analyzed, right? So you're in the room, you're in a diverse room, but the way in which your perspective you bring to that data science, that question, we're listening. And from everyone having this shared voice and understanding this tool, then we have dynamic questions, we have dynamic solutions. And the truth is, when we get in that room, when we get in the room with these diverse people, the goal is already achieved, right? So the hope isn't, okay, that everyone gets an A, right? The fact that we have these people in this room, they have perspectives that, for me as an instructor, oh, we've won, right? Because the challenge was getting us all in the room at the same time. Because we at some point, we weren't allowed in the room. At some point, you were in the room, but you couldn't speak. At a certain point, you were in the room, but you're invisible. But the fact that we're in the room is diverse and you can speak. As long as we agree that we've won that battle, what comes out of that experience itself is going to be a win-win, right? But sometimes I think we defeat ourselves with not trying to find the rooms to get in, being in the room, not being heard, and then sometimes we get lost. But being in the room, being diverse, being heard, is a win-win situation that success will come out of that. Great questions will come out of that. Great research projects will come out of that. Funding, everything else shall come out of us being in that room, being diverse and being heard. So that's the hope that keeps me excited.
Thank you so much for joining us for this incredible talk from two incredible leaders at Howard University. Those of us who are at PWIs are often told to only accept real seats because there's lots of performative seats right now. And Howard has always been in the business of creating real opportunities. It is a beacon for so many of us. So I deeply appreciate both of your time. And for those who are watching us who are not in the room, make sure you find your way into a room like Howard University. Thank you all for watching. For more information on SICSS-Howard Mathematica, Visit our website, follow us on social media, and join our email list.